Miss GoElectric here. Now, when most people are shopping for an e-bike, they want an experience that's simple, just like riding a regular bicycle. They don't want any kind of learning curve. But once you start getting comfortable riding an e-bike, you want to have some technology like GPS tracking, anti-theft alarms, or power boosts in different ride modes. But I've also heard from people that they want an e-bike that doesn't even look like an e-bike, and they want one that's built here in America. Today, I'd like to introduce a bike to you that might just fit the bill. This is the Vela Vento. Earlier this year, I sat down with the co-founder and CEO, Justin Kosmidas, and you can watch the video with every little detail about Vela here, but let me just give you the Cliff Notes real quick. Vela was founded in 2012 in Brazil, and they're very popular there, but now they're starting to assemble them here in North America. As a matter of fact, not only do they assemble them, but they have built the bike frames here right in the city of Detroit. And I'm a Michigander, so I'm a big fan of that. Now, I haven't heard of this before, but Vela touts that the majority of their riders are female. And by looking at this bike, I can definitely tell why. It's a very simple, classic vintage design, and there's a lot of technology just under the surface. So before I talk about that, let's get into the specifications and features.
The Vento has a chrome moly 4130 grade steel frame in the style of classic 1970s French bicycles. This is the slate-covered step-over version, which is well suited for riders from 5'7" to 6'5", with a maximum payload of 300 pounds. It weighs 50 pounds with the battery included. They also sell a step-through for riders 5'1" to 6 foot, which is 45 pounds. As you can see, the front fork is rigid. This bike does not have a suspension, and a suspension seat post is not an option because of this seat post tube geometry. Each bike comes with 3 post lengths, and they can cut custom lengths too. Inside the seat post tube, you'll find a 4.6 pound battery which operates at 36 volts with a capacity of 10 amp hours. That works out to 360 watt hours. It is IP66 rated for wet weather, but it is not UL listed. Vela claims a range of about 40 miles, which is probably about right for a smaller rider on flat ground with pedal assist set to low. Personally, I would plan for 20 miles between charges. Interestingly, the battery and the bike use a 1/4-inch TS cables like you might use to plug in an electric guitar. This means there are no delicate pins exposed, and the connection is more robust than most bikes. This hub motor is rated at 350 watts with a peak output of 550 watts. That should be plenty for a casual cruiser. Unlike most e-bikes, this motor lets the Vento extend range by 10 to 20% if regenerative braking is enabled. This technology also reduces brake wear by up to 80%. The bike comes with integrated, always-on headlight and taillights, as well as fenders, with perhaps the best coverage of any e-bike we've tested. Look at these things. The mud flaps are a nice touch functionally and in terms of aesthetics. It is one of the long list of quirks which make the Vela bikes feel vintage. Among them is this stealthy turbo button. Don't call it a throttle because Class 1 bikes like this can't have a throttle. When depressed, it will take the rider from a standstill to 6 miles per hour without pedaling. That is very helpful for an 18-tooth fixie like this. That button will also add a little extra pep and get the rider to the top speed of 20 miles per hour with pedal assistance. There is no display on the bike and you don't need one to operate it. In fact, it doesn't even have a power button. If you move the bike, the headlight turns on telling you it's ready to ride with the same settings as your previous ride. I'd prefer to have some kind of hardware for checking the charge level, but the only way to see that is by opening the app. You can use the app as a Bluetooth bike computer while riding if you like. The phone holder built into the stem will keep metal phones in place while you ride. I think city riders are likely to consider this e-bike, and they'll be happy to learn there is some anti-theft technology built into the Vento. If somebody tampers with your bike when you aren't around, the Vela app will notify you and allow you to track the location. It also has an alarm and locking system.
Okay, the bike is locked. I did that through the app, and now I'm gonna move it to see what happens. A lot of resistance in the motor, and as you can hear, the alarm's going off. Lots of resistance. It's very, very hard to move the bike.
The The anti-theft hardware is located in this controller pouch. The security screw keeps tinkerers out but allows access for a repair. In here, you'll also find Hologram's 4G internet connectivity, motherboard, gyroscope sensor, and GPS. These parts are built to be upgradable, which could become important someday when 4G becomes obsolete. The 200mm adjustable stem lets you set handlebar height and angle. Stainless steel handlebars match the rest of the Brightwork, and the vegan leather grips look vintage. With a bike like this, any commodity plastic part anywhere could throw off the vibe. I love how the front logo, headlight casing, crank, pedals, rims, even the adjustable kickstand match with the shape and finish. Even the chain guard appears to be bespoke to the brand. The 28-inch Schwalbe balloon tires are 2 inches wide and have a puncture-resistant liner. If they weren't cream-colored, the bike would simply not be complete. This bell feels premium and helps complete the look. Those aluminum brake levers fit the bill too. They connect to mechanical cables leading to hydraulic calipers on 160mm rotors. I haven't yet reviewed a bike with Zoom's X-Tech semi-hydraulic brakes, but I prefer this solution to the old school mechanical cantilever brakes on Vela's other bikes. This bike is clearly built around ease of service. The Vento has a lifetime frame warranty with 2 years on the motor and 1 year on the other electrical components. The website says riders can expect 3 years or 1,000 charge cycles from the included battery. They've got a partnership with VeloTooler for mobile service, which is helpful because they don't have a nationwide physical sales or service network. It could be easy to dismiss the Vento as basic or unremarkable, but the closer you look, the more special it becomes. There are over 4,000 Velas on the road today, and now I can see why the brand gets so much love.
Now, those are the technical specifications, but what most people care about is the experience. From buying to building to riding, and even what happens when you're done riding this bike and you want to get a new one. So first off, ordering the bike, the website is very clean, simple, easy to understand, and has a really nice aesthetic vibe to it. Next is the build. Now trust me, you're going to want to watch Vela's assembly video for this bike, not only because it's really high production value and effective on showing you how to build the bike, but it is very whimsical and it really enforces that fun and leisurely attitude from the brand. It should take you about 20 minutes to assemble this bike because look at it. It is very simple. And that brings me to my next point, which is the riding experience. That's also very simple, if you want it to be, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Lastly is, what do you do when you want to buy a new Vela down the road or you want a different style of bike? What happens with the old bike that you have? Vela is one of the only brands that I've ever heard of that has a buyback program, and although it's in a few locations, like in Brooklyn, New York, and in Detroit where they build the bikes, they are rolling it out across the country. All right, I talked about the technical specifications and the ownership experience, but now it's time to ride this bike. And this one's very unique because it doesn't even have a power button, so it's ready to go. And would you look at that? This is my custom helmet from Electric Bike Company, and the straps, they're vegan here. They match the vegan leather here on the bike as well. I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to check that out, but let's get to riding. All right, so right now I am just riding the bike with no assistance on. So this is a fixie. There's no adjustment in shifting at all. So if you do want to control the resistance or the amount of work you're putting in, you're definitely going to want to turn that motor on so that it can help you. But this bike, it's about 50 pounds or so, so this is doable as far as pedaling without any kind of assist. But I would definitely want to do it on flat terrain because going up hills would not be fun if I can't shift. So keep that in mind. This is going to be probably pretty good as like a city bike and really nice on pavement. Not only because of that, but also there's no suspension, so it's all steel frame. And so flat surfaces are your friend in this case. Let's move on up to the different assist modes. Now just to explain real quick, there are 3. We have low, high, and auto. In the low mode, you're looking at a top speed of about 14 miles per hour. In high, about 17 miles per hour. Keep in mind this is a class 1 bike. And then you have auto mode, which is perfect for this situation here. So actually, let me turn auto mode on right now so I can experience up this hill. I'm gonna get the app out. Unfortunately, my phone, I don't have a metal phone, so I can't just put it on here. I would need a case in order to accommodate that, or a separate phone mount. So that's why I don't have it up on here right now. But let's move this to auto mode. There we go. And we can see how it performs on this hill. Now, what is different about this auto mode is it is basing off my riding conditions. Like if I'm going up this hill, it is gonna give me more power because it has sensors in the bike that can tell when I'm going uphill. So it gives me a little bit more. And I can tell this performance is really nice. I feel like I'm not putting any work at all really in, so definitely does the job. Really smooth transition of power too. So in this case, feels really nice and responsive. All right, I'm gonna brake a little. Something to note is the regenerative braking on this bike just kicked in. So when I'm going downhill, I can feel that resistance in that rear hub. And I actually really love this because in this case, going downhill, I can recuperate anywhere between 10 and 20% of that energy and put it back into my battery to recharge. So if you do live in an area that might be a little bit hilly, this bike seems like it'd be a good fit, not only because of the auto assist mode, but also because of that regenerative braking. Just let you go a little bit further than you expect. But so far, performance is pretty good. Now, my legs are kind of spinning freely at this stage because again, we don't have a shifter here. So in this case, I would probably drop it down to the lower assist modes. But to be fair, I think most people, what they're gonna do is just use this as a cruiser and stay in this auto mode and not really be concerned about putting any work in and having the bike do it all for them. The other nice thing about the regenerative braking is that you can turn it on and off. So if you don't like that sensation, then it's up to you to be able to, through the app, click the on or off button, which is kind of nice that you have that flexibility. I would probably keep it on all the time just because I like the concept of giving my battery more energy back all the time. As far as the riding position goes, I'm sitting rather upright, but I do feel a little bit pressure coming down from my shoulders onto these grips, which I will say, I love the paddle style. That is my favorite type of design. These are vegan leather and they're pretty comfortable. They're not slipping around too bad, but that is one of my concerns with the leather materials or fake leather materials, is that they tend to get a little bit slippery. So it's a tough choice here though, because this goes so well with the aesthetic and I really don't want to mess with the aesthetic. So it's kind of a give and take situation. His handlebars come back a little bit to make it feel like I'm not reaching too far. You'll notice I have a bell right here too. It looks so vintage and classic with this design of the bike. I like it's nice and loud. It's perfect for going in city situations where I'm around other bikes, pedestrians, or even some cars. It kind of ties into that design and the riding application. The tires feel great. This is a wider tire, but it's not too wide, so I feel like it's gonna be efficient enough to get the job done. Probably can withstand a decent packed gravel type of trail as well, because it is a little wider and it's got some grooves in it, not too thick, but just enough to keep it stable on a little bit of a rocky path. The version that I'm riding on is a step over version. They also have a step through, And I'm the type that really likes to have the step-through design just because it's easier to get on and off. And one thing I will say is that the step-over design has a secondary tube, and it is not truly a true step through, so keep that in mind. The saddle on this bike is really comfortable, it's wide, and again, it goes really nicely as far as aesthetics with the vegan leather appointments, whether that's this whole system with the electronics in it or the grips. One kind of interesting thing while I'm talking about this electronics hub is that it has a USB port. So if I do have my phone here, I can have a cable that runs right there to charge my phone while I'm riding, which is nice. And it also houses the spot where I can plug the bike in. So if I don't want to take the battery out, then I can just plug in right underneath that USB port to charge the bike. I'm really enjoying the performance so far. It's a 350 watt motor, but it peaks at 550 watts when you have the boost mode on. And I haven't even tested that yet, but once we come down this hill, I will, and we'll see how it performs on the straightaway. But before I do that, one thing I want to just note right now that you guys can't see, but while I'm pedaling, the pedals themselves have a surface on them that has kind of like a rubberized material on it. And I really like that because my feet don't slide off the pedals as much. Even in like wet conditions, I can imagine that they would be performing well and keeping my foot in place. Okay, so if you want to get up to that 20 mile per hour top speed on this bike, because this is a class 1, how to achieve that is you need to press this button over here on the right. This is the boost button. So say I start pedaling, I hold that down, this is gonna give me full access to that power. Whoo! And it's a nice transition. It is not jumpy at all. It just slightly increases over time, but this is plenty fast enough. Wow. For this type of bike, I think the performance is really ideal. You can just get on the bike and start riding, and it will give you the power for your last assist setting without even having to adjust anything. You don't have to use the app if you don't want to. You can just make it as simple as you possibly want. And I think people really want that type of an experience with an e-bike. They don't want to have to learn how to like power it on, unlock these speeds, and do all this extra stuff. They just want to get out there and ride. And you can really do that on this. And it looks so good. I would be so happy to be riding around on a stylish looking bike like this and having people see, pulling up to a little ice cream shop or coffee shop or anything like that. It's just such a cute aesthetic. I know I mentioned that there's regenerative braking, but the brakes are technically mechanical, but they had a little hydraulic system right on the calipers. So keep that in mind. I think that's probably going to be plenty for a bike like this that is class 1, fairly lightweight. Me, I'm 140 pounds or so, so performance-wise it should do the job, but once I get down to the bottom of this hill, we'll do a little bit of a braking test to see how well they stop. All right, let's do a braking test. 3, 2, 1. It did take a little bit longer to get stopped, but that definitely brought me to a stop comfortably. All right, now I'm riding in the low mode, and so this basically, I can feel quite a bit more resistance. This is if you want it closer to like a regular biking experience. The low is very subtle, which makes it feel, you know, safe because you don't get a jolt of power or anything like that. And I would still say that the auto and the high modes are still smooth. I felt like my legs were spinning freely when I had it in auto up this hill. And in low mode, it's a perfect balance. Obviously, you're not gonna hit as high of top speeds, but that feels really nice. All right, I'm gonna put it on high assist now and I'll see what I think that does. I can already feel it in the pedal as I push just a little bit forward. It's a really responsive sensor on the pedal there, but here we go. It's definitely giving me all that access to that power. Really smooth transition. That's one thing I really enjoy about this riding experience, is that the power delivery is so smooth. So I still feel as if I'm, you know, requiring a little bit of effort on my pedaling in the high mode, but not enough to where I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating or out of breath or anything like that. But I think most people will probably just end up using the auto assist and call it a day. That way they don't have to fumble around with it too much. I mean, if you do have your phone here and just tapping it, it's probably really nice and easy, but once I take my foot off of that rotation of pedaling, the power cuts off pretty immediately. All right, well, let's head back and I'll share my final thoughts on the Vela Vento. All right, I've had enough time riding around on the Vela Vento, and I don't know if I told you guys this yet, but this is actually a prototype. I got this a couple weeks ago, and that was before the bike even launched, and now it's out and available. So I thought I was gonna have to dance around some things with a prototype bike, but this seems like it's gonna be a pretty good example of what you're gonna get when you get a production version. First, I'm gonna talk about the improvements that I'd like to see on this bike, and then I'll get into the positive attributes as well as who I think this bike is for. How can this bike be better? Well, I know this is a minor thing, but cable management is something that I look at very closely. And although this is better than most, I would say, I like the fact that it is sheathed around the cables, but it is a little bit more of a cheap material and has a little bit more slack than I would like. Next would be the battery. Now, this provides anywhere between 20 and 40 miles of range according to Vela, but the problem is that this bike is always in a constant on state unless you put it into the deep sleep mode. And if you put it into the deep sleep mode, then you don't have access to the GPS tracking technology. So there's kind of some trade-offs there, but ultimately if I had a little bit more capacity in the battery, I'd feel comfortable leaving it in that state of always on so that I could have that GPS tracking on. Overall, I like the aesthetic of the bike, but there's one little thing that caught my eye, and that has to deal with this electronics portion here. Now, this is like that vegan leather material that you see on the grips and on the saddle, but what they've done here is they've put like a clear sealant along the side here, and it almost feels like a homemade type of thing where it's not that refined. What I think would be kind of cool is maybe if they could cover that up with a piece of leather on top and incorporate some buckles. That would even add more to the aesthetic, but that way I wouldn't see kind of these little bits and pieces of that clear caulk. Although during my ride I thought that the mechanical brakes did just fine, I think that for this price point at about $2,500, they should have hydraulic lines that go to those hydraulic calipers. So hydraulics all the way around, because I don't want to have to deal with the maintenance over time, and I think that just adds to the premium feel of this price point. Speaking of price, you can get more bike for less money elsewhere, and so you have to be willing to pay the premium for things like it being made in America, the style cues, and that discrete technology that's incorporated. But now let's talk about the positive things that I like about this bike and who this bike's for. First off is the aesthetics. I mean, this is such a great looking bike, and I think they tied it all in, not only with the vegan leather appointments, but the white tires, the finish on the bike. It's almost like a matte type finish, and they have tons of different colors to choose from, even seasonal options. On the end of the fenders, that vegan leather material is embossed with the logo, and those mud flaps just look so cool. I think that they really nailed it on the head, making this feel very vintage with all the nickel pieces all the way around, incorporating it not only in the wheels, but in the motor and on the pedals. They really nailed it with the app because not only was the sign up process easy, I just signed in with my Google account, but then it immediately showed the information on the display. It was very user-friendly, easy to tap those buttons to move through the different modes, turning on and off regenerative braking, seeing the basic information that I want to see, whether that is the map data, how fast I'm going. I just really appreciate how much work that they put into this app because it works great as an integration with this bike. I've used other bike apps that have more features like community elements or recording your rides, and I didn't see that in the Vela app, but maybe in the future they will incorporate some more of those features. The app allows you to push firmware updates to the bike, which means that over time your bike will have new features or it'll continue to improve. And I think that is really great because it works similar to how my car is. My Tesla always is pushing new updates to me and it feels like I have a new car all the time. So who is the Vela Vento for? This is a bike that actually crosses a pretty wide demographic, but what's important here is it's for someone that wants a classic, simple riding experience. They can turn on the technology if they want to, but if they don't, they can just ride it like a regular bike with just a little bit more help. If you're interested in learning more about this bike, then see the link in the description below. We also have a discount code, Miss GoElectric, for $300 off, so you can see that down there as well. Vela might help support the Miss GoElectric channel if they find we're helping their customers find the right bike for them. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this latest review, and until next time, drive, fly, ride. Go electric.